Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining the CaFÉ webinar today. Today, I'll be showing you all the different kinds of reports that you can download from CaFÉ and how to pull that details and information from your call. Reports can help in numerous ways to organize your info and keep records of your events. With each report, I'll go through some tips and tricks for how to best use them. The key items that we will cover today include downloading events management reports, exporting the income breakdown report, and using the communication bounds and events data reports. So the first set of reports that we'll go over today is the events management reports. These reports can help you take the applications offline, organize contact information, and keep track of the artwork. To access these reports, we'll first log into CaFÉ, which we are here. We're logged in as an administrator, and we'll go to the events tab. We'll click on the management tab. We're already here, and it'll load the events management page. Then I'll choose the call that I'm going to pull my data from in the current event drop-down menu. We'll go ahead and choose this one. Then you'll see the table of applications that you're all used to, where the applications are sorted into different statuses depending on where you are in your call process. So you might be in the middle of accepting applications, or maybe you just finished the run of your call and all applications are in the received status like we have here. But you can also do this at any other time, perhaps once you're done jurying and you have your application split between the not invited and invited status, in which case you may only need the report for the invited status. You can also click View All to view all the applications if you have them split up into different statuses and you just need to pull all of them at the same time. So I'll go ahead and click on the Receive status. Let me change our view here. Once the list of applications load at the bottom of the page, you'll see two options at the top right of the list of applications: Download XLXS and Download PDF. There are different options under each one. Under Download XLXS, you'll see contact information, application answers, and media information. And under Download PDF, you'll see the applications and media inventory list. So I'll go through each one and talk about what is included in these reports and some possible needs you may have for them. Just know that when we mention events management reports as a whole, or if you're using our online help center and need info about what we're talking about here, all of these reports under these two options are referred to as the events management reports because it's pulling information from a specific event. So let's start with the download spreadsheet options, aka the download XLSX option. That just simply refers to the format of the report, which is a spreadsheet and can be opened by most programs like Excel, Numbers, etc. So the first spreadsheet you can download is the contact information report. This will give you the spreadsheet of the artist's names, mailing address, email, phone, and website. So when I click on this report here, the download will initiate immediately. Depending on your browser, the download will show up at the bottom of your window like we have here in Chrome, or give you the option to save the spreadsheet or open it in the browser. Firefox usually gives you an option. You can also check your computer's downloads folder to find and open the spreadsheet. So I'm going to switch our view here. And just to show you the entire thing. And I will open our report. And you'll see once open, this is using the Numbers program since I'm using a Mac. And you'll see it just opens that spreadsheet for you. So you'll see we have the artist ID number on the left. We have the date that they applied, some other information, first and last name, and then it'll go into all that contact information. So it includes their address, city, state. It'll give you the phone number here. They have a primary and secondary option. The emails, this is an important spot here in case you need to export all of the emails at once. You can get it from that column. And then, there's, alternative contact information as well. So that's some other information. There might be some columns here that don't really pertain to your event. These are used for other art festivals and our other programs applications. So you may not need to worry about these columns, but it will tell you whether or not it's flagged or tagged. And here is where it'll list the category that the application is in. So if I'm comparing this with our CaFÉ page over here, you'll see that this list is the same as our spreadsheet, and it lists, the category. But the spreadsheet, of course, just gives you that extra information that's pulled from the artist profile. So when an artist signs up for CaFÉ, they enter their contact information in their profile as a whole, and that information gets pulled in for your event. So that's how you can view the contact information report. And like I said, this report will download for any of the applications that you've loaded into this table here. So, here we have the 23 entries in the received status, but let's say I wanted to narrow it down. I can come to CaFÉ and use this search by box to narrow it down by category. So maybe I'll choose 2D art, and that will give me a smaller list. Maybe I only want to show my flagged applications. So I will click that and then press go, and that will narrow down my list more. And then once I download the contact information report or any of these reports, once I open it, you will see that the report only contains the information that I selected for the applications in CaFÉ. So that's how you can customize what is displayed in the report itself. Go ahead and close these. So let's move on to the next report option, which is the application answers report. I'll go ahead and clear my filters here, actually. So under download spreadsheet and application answers, this spreadsheet will give you the artist's basic info and email, and will also list their answers to your custom form questions if you created any. So let's take a look when I click on it, and I'll open the report. So here you'll see we have similar information. We have the artist's ID number, name. It also gives their email and basic contact information with their phone number, and the category that they're in. You'll see here that it also lists these answers to the application question. So this call was collecting artist statements, so it includes the artist statements. And there's 2 additional questions from the application, and this spreadsheet gives those answers that those artists entered. It'll also give you, the application. If it was tagged, it'll show the tags there. For example, let's compare it with CaFÉ again. If I go in and click on one of these application ID numbers to pull up the application itself, you'll see here under form answers, this is where it'll list all the questions we created in the call editor to have artists fill out. So you'll see we have 2 questions and their answers, and this pertains to the answers that are on our spreadsheet here. So this spreadsheet is useful if you need to pull the artist statements, for example. Maybe you're making labels for your exhibition. Maybe you need to determine, if they're how many members or how many non-members. If you ask that question on the application, how many applied? So this is the report that will give you quick access to those application answers without individually going through each of the applications on CaFÉ. One thing to note here is that if you had any questions in your application that asked for artists to upload a file, such as a resume or proposal document, if they uploaded that file, it's not going to be included on the spreadsheet, as the spreadsheet just simply pulls data and plain text. So if you need those files for any purpose at all, you can access them in the application page itself. It'll be listed here as a file, and it'll have the option to download it. And of course, it's also accessible as a downloadable file on the jury side, so the jurors can see it. But that's just one exception to the application answers spreadsheet, that those files won't be included in that. So let's go to our final spreadsheet report and close this and return to our list. Under download spreadsheet, we have the media information report. This lists the artwork details that the artist included with their images, such as medium, dimensions, price, and year completed. We can quickly download this report here. I'll open it up. And we'll see here, it looks very similar. This one also lists the artist ID numbers, names, basic contact information. I think it's over here at the end. Actually, it'll list their phone number and address and all that info. But in the middle here, we'll see we've got the information about the artwork itself. So it'll say work sample type. So when they uploaded it to CaFÉ, was it an image, audio, or video file? It'll list the title, medium, and those dimensions. You'll also see we have the information here about the cost, the description, year created, the discipline they selected for it, and some other information. So again, I can go to CaFÉ and I'll click on the application again. I'll scroll down and I'll view this artwork here, and I'll click on the artwork, and you can see the artwork information and the dimensions. This is the info that is copied into this spreadsheet here. So you can see there. This spreadsheet is handy if you are making labels, like I mentioned before, where you need to quickly pull the dimensions, medium, prices, etc. And like the rest of the reports, it can be useful for just regular record keeping of the artwork info. Let's say you just need to download the report of the artwork that was invited to the exhibition or the event. You can just run that report for the invited status, and there you go. That's the record of the artwork that was invited to the exhibition. And you can use that and keep that info for yourself. All right, so those are our spreadsheets. Let me switch our view here again real quick. Now we'll move on to the PDF reports. So under download PDF, like I said before, you have two options, applications and media inventory list. The applications PDF shows each application on its own page along with the thumbnail images. So it actually looks pretty much the same as if you're viewing it on CaFÉ, and I'll compare them in a second. But this may be useful if you need to go offline to review applications. I'll go ahead and click the applications option. And if you click on that, you'll then get to this options page here for the PDF report where you can download it for the jury or for you, the administrator. If you choose the jury option, what this will do is adjust the report to reflect the settings that you set up in the jury administration page. So these are things like the jury permissions where you can hide certain bits of the application info. If you've activated the blind jury, it will hide the artist's name. So if you click on the jury option and you're conducting a blind jury, as long as those settings are set in the jury admin page, the report here will not include the artist's names. You can also shortcut it by saying remove all contact information to remove that from the report. But if you're just, you need all the information and you're downloading the PDF as an administrator, you can just click the administrator button and it will download the PDF of the applications, including all the info. So just like I did before, Chrome will show it here on the bottom, and I'll open this up. Chrome will actually open this up in my own browser, so we don't have to open up a different program. But depending on your browser, it might just be a little bit different how you're opening the PDF itself. So when I open this up, you'll see it's a PDF file, and then each page here will contain each application on its own page. So you see we have one here, we've got the next one, and the next one. You'll see it has the same sections with the same info, such as the artist's name, contact info, artist statement, if they included it down below, any answers to those custom questions. If I go back here again, see, and I'll open up one of these applications. You'll see, the view is a little bit different, but it's essentially the same info just on a PDF page. And of course, since this is a read-only PDF file, you can't really click on the work samples to enlarge them like you can here. But it, gives you a read-only version so that you can take this PDF and review the applications offline or just outside of CaFÉ. Or again, if you just want some general record keeping, you can download this PDF to save a copy of each of the applications that were submitted to your call. One note is that if you received a large number of applications, I'll go ahead and come back here. If you, let's say we had, several hundred applications here and we wanted to download the report, If I go to click applications, what you might see is a pop-up window that says the report will be emailed to you. And that's because the report may take too long to generate and we don't want to slow down your system. So we've implemented a way where if the file itself is too large, it will email it to you, and the pop-up window will give you an estimated time for when you can expect that email with that report. Oftentimes it isn't longer than about 5 minutes for the largest reports, but sometimes it can be slower than that. The last reports we have for the events management reports is the media inventory list. So this is a PDF that lists the media information like we talked about on the media information spreadsheet. However, this will show you it in a PDF format with a grid, and it'll also include thumbnail images to visually reference those media samples. So if I click on the report and open it up, you'll see that the report contains, that media info along with the thumbnail images and the info about each one. Some like to use this if they're hanging a show or having the works delivered. They can print this out and just, visually reference the artwork being collected and shipped and just, check it off as they receive them. Or some like to use this to make labels so they can reference the visual of the image along with the rest of the information. So you'll see we have the dimensions that they can reference and all the other media information. Like I said, this report, like the other reports, can be downloaded for whichever status or batch or search result that we have up here. You can customize that report for the specific applications that you need the data for. Or if you just are pulling all the data and info for everything, you can just click on View All, download the reports you want, and save those for your records. So the next report we'll go over is the income breakdown report. The income breakdown report is an itemized list of artist purchase transactions with dates, fee types, and lists if coupons were used. Having this report can be important to have if you want to verify anyone's transaction, review how much entry fee, revenue your call is collecting, or just for general bookkeeping. So you'll find this under the Reports tab. So we'll click on Reports from the menu. If you are ever wondering where your menu is, just you click on these 3 lines at the top, click on Reports, and then we'll click on Income Breakdown. Once on this page, you'll first select the date range for the data you want to pull into the report. So you can run this for the report of your entire run of the call. So you can put in from when the call opened to when you're either today or when the call closed. You can choose this for, the month prior if you are wanting to look at the entry fee revenue that you should expect in your next remittance check. Or maybe you want all the transactions from the past year. So I'll go ahead and choose our date range. I'm just going to do year to date. So we'll go ahead and choose that. Next, you can choose from any of the filter options. These can help you narrow down or expand the data you receive. So the first set of options allow you to include or exclude transactions that were paid by check, credit card, or if they were $0 transactions. If you allow check payments, you may want to hide all checks so that you can get an accurate amount of entry fees to expect in your next remittance check from us, CaFÉ. For example, so maybe you just don't want checks to be included in this report, or maybe you want to include checks, in which case you would make sure that's unchecked, just to make sure that you can see, all the entry fee revenue that you expect to receive, whether that be by mailed in checks or through CaFÉ in the credit cards. So, or maybe you want it all checks, so you can hide everything except the checks. But just make sure you uncheck hide all credit card transactions if you're, really wanting to see how much entry fees were paid through CaFÉ. If you are running a call that does not collect entry fees, aka your entry fee is $0, you'll want to make sure you uncheck the hide all $0 transactions option, because then you just won't get any results since it's default to hide all of those $0 transactions. So our demo call here that we're working with today didn't have an entry fee, so I'm going to make sure I uncheck that hide all $0. You also have the option here to include or exclude active calls or archived calls from the report. In the next step of choosing which calls you're running the info for, some have a very long list of archived calls, so it's default to hide those from this list, and so you don't have to scroll through this entire list of archived calls. But if you are, going in to see the income breakdown report from a past archived call, you just want to grab that info, just make sure to uncheck this, and then your list here will include all of your calls. Otherwise, you can leave that unchecked. So once you've selected your filter options, what you'll do is go to the calls and you can select which calls you want to run your report for. If you're running multiple calls at once, you may want to include multiple in this list. You can also just select all to get all of your entry fee revenue for that specific date range. Or if you just want it for one specific call, you'll just want to run it for that call. Here, I'll go ahead and include a couple different of our demo calls to show you what that'll look like if you have multiple selected. So you'll see the calls that we're going to run the report for on the side. Before we download the report, you have a couple other options. One is to download the report only, and that means if I check this and I click Run Report, it's not going to actually display the table of that data. It'll simply just initiate the download of the spreadsheet. This is helpful if you know you have a big file and you don't really necessarily want to load it onto CaFÉ since it might take a while, or you just need the spreadsheet to save for your records. You don't actually need to view the info on the page first. You can simply click this and run it, and it will just download the spreadsheet. You can also choose to have the report emailed. Again, if you know your report's going to be large, you can go ahead and just click email report, and that will do similar to what I described for that PDF report. Is you will see a message that the report will be emailed to you. It'll be emailed to the email address that's on your administrator account here, and it'll email you the report when it's ready. So I'll go ahead and uncheck those since I do want to show you on this page. Once all that's set, I'm going to click Run Report. So you'll see here the following information. I'm just going to go through each of these columns here and describe them briefly. So here on the left, we have the transaction ID number. This is the ID number CaFÉ assigns to this transaction. It's mostly used internally as it's a different ID number than the one our payment processor uses. It can be used to reference internally, which transaction we're talking about. If you're communicating with us, the CaFÉ team, this is helpful. Next, we have the transaction date. So this is the date and time the purchase was made, also known as when the artist checked out, paid, and submitted their application. If your entry was free, like we have here, you can see, everything's $0 since this was a free entry for our demo call. This timestamp will come in handy just to find out when the artist checked out or when the artist submitted their application. You'll see the date and the timestamp of when they submitted. The next one is the purchaser column. So this just simply lists the artist name as listed in their artist profile. And in the parentheses here, you'll see the artist's usernames. This username can help differentiate if an artist has multiple artist accounts. So if you see, similar names but different usernames, maybe they had to use different accounts, or this might also just help to, reference a specific account with the CaFÉ team if you want us to look up an artist. Next, we have the amount. So this is the total amount here at the top. We'll say the total amount paid by the artist in their transaction. As you can see, the first line here lists the total, and then underneath it will break down if there were multiple products purchased. For example, this artist here actually applied to 2 separate calls. So they, checked out with one, even though they're $0, one free entry for one call and one for another call. If you're only pulling a report for one call and let's say you have an entry fee and an additional media fee, those will also be broken out down below here. But the total will show the total amount paid by the artist when they checked out on CaFÉ. The next column over is the CC fee, which is the credit card fee. So this shows the amount taken out of the entry fee for the payment processor fee. So this is a 3.25% of all transactions made by credit card on CaFÉ. That's a fixed credit card fee. And then, you'll see the next column over is the net amount, which shows the amount that you will be receiving after that credit card fee is taken out of each transaction. And we have, the description, which is the name of the product itself. So if you have the entry fee listed on your product editor in the call editor of CaFÉ, it will list the name of that product here. So it might say, entry fee, media fee. If you're selling other things like, memberships or catalogs, or if you have an additional participation fee, whatever you've listed it as on the product editor, it will just pull into here so you can reference what the artist actually paid for. Under details, we have a couple different codes. So the approval code, this is the actual ID number given by our payment processor. We use Braintree and PayPal. So those will give us the approval code given from them. And we also have another kind of code below. It's the PPREF number. Right now, you'll see it as dummy 2 since this is a $0 transaction fee. That kind of just tells us it's a non-paid entry fee. But if it's paid for by a credit card, this number will also be more unique and will help us reference if the finance team needs to make a refund or anything like that. These are the codes that we'll use. You'll also see, of course, the licensee name, which is just the name of your organization. The call names, of course, are listed here. And so that's basically all the information you receive per transaction. So you'll see here, this is all considered one transaction for this one artist for a couple different calls. And it'll show them broken out for, each of those artists. At the bottom of the page, once you've scrolled through, all those individual transactions, you'll see the income for the period that you ran the report for. So you'll see the overall amount collected, number of transactions. This is the number of entry fees technically sold. This can also be referred to as the number of artists that entered during this period. So transactions will equal, number of submissions. Keep in mind here, we have a couple different calls for this period. And then here it'll show you that, overall amount collected, the overall credit card fee that was removed, and then that net amount. So what you'll want to refer to is the net amount that was collected for the time period you selected on the report. This will show you the amount of entry fee revenue you've collected that you will receive from CaFÉ. If you are running this report for the month prior, you can then look on this net amount to see how much to expect on the check from CaFÉ. Just keep in mind that if you are having us auto remove your CaFÉ service fees, module fees from your entry fee revenue, then this net amount may not necessarily match the amount on the checks. But if you have already paid up front for your calls, or if you're in the middle of your call and you've already paid off your service fees, if you run it for the month prior, this number should be the number of that you're expecting for that specific month. And then it'll also kind of show you a breakdown between credit card and checks, which reminds me, I can pull up a check payment. I guess we don't have any on them here, but I can choose a different call and see. I'll show you what it looks like when a check was submitted. And with a coupon too. Let's see here. Let me just select all. And I'm going to go back a little bit in time. Let's see. Okay. So first I can show you what it looks like with a coupon. So if, it's all, you'll see here that this has a coupon used. So therefore the cost is still $0. But this particular demo call had an entry fee. This artist account used 100% discount, and it shows here on this details, the coupon that was used. So this is the name of the coupon that you set up in the product editor, and it'll tell you how much was discounted. Let's see if I can find a check payment here. Oh, no, it is showing all checks. We should have some. Just search. Here we go. So this one was a $5 entry. There was a discount. Oh, no, this one was a $5 entry and is paid by check. So you'll see here, it doesn't give you much information in terms of like an approval code or something. All it gives you is that check number. So this would be the number that the artist entered when they're filling out their check. They insert the check number there. So that's just to show you what it looks like with the checks. Okay, And then like we were talking about before, at the bottom of the page here, so, we're looking at the totals. Now we've run multiple calls here, so we have a lot more transactions, but it'll show you the totals. Pending will refer to those check payments. So if you're expecting a check, then pending will be the amount that you're expected to receive in the mail from those checks. And then at the bottom, we have the income for the period, but then we have the income for the event. So this is the same information down below as right here, except it's broken out for each different call that you're running. So it will show those breakdowns so you can compare between the different calls, which calls are collecting what amount of your revenue. And then at the bottom of the page and at the top as well, there's the option to download the spreadsheet. So I showed you before, once you download it, it'll open up that spreadsheet. You can also choose to download it as a CSV file or a tab file. So you have those different options there. You can click to download that. So I do recommend just running an income breakdown report when you're done accepting applications for your own record keeping. But all of this info will be stored in CaFÉ. So as long as you're an active member with us, you'll still have access to the data for all past and present calls. It might be just a good idea, or you might, be used to your own operations of downloading this report and saving it for your bookkeeping. So there are two other reports under the Reports tab in your dashboard that you can use to access info about your call. First is the Events Communication Bounce Report and the Events Data Report. So we'll start with the Communication Bounce Report. This report will help you check to see if any messages you sent through CaFÉ were bounced or not delivered. These emails include any time you send an individual artist an email through CaFÉ, or anytime you send an email through the events communication tool. So, like when you send out your invite or non-invited letters, when your jury is complete, this report will help show you if any emails were bounced. So on this page, it's pretty simple. You just select the events you want to run the report for. So again, we'll, choose the same couple calls that we've been using. You can also choose all the events. Again, we'll set the time period here that we want to run the report for. If you sent the email on a specific day, you can just set the from and to date to the same date to run it for that date you sent the email. And then we'll click Run Report. So you'll see here we did receive one report here, which I will talk about in a second. What I'm going to do is show you what it looks like if no bounce is reported. I'll select this and then click Run Report again. So as you can see, it says no reports found. And that's actually a good sign because it means that, any emails you sent during this time period, none were bounced or undelivered. Keep in mind, though, that doesn't necessarily mean every artist received the email because as with any emailing system, some folks have filters and other settings set up that might affect their email and what they receive. But if you see no bounces reported, that means the CaFÉ system did not run into any issues delivering the message. If you do see a bounce reported, if I go back to our report before, it will look something like this. So it will list any and all bounces reported. It will list the artist name that it didn't send to, the subject, which is the subject that you entered when you sent the email. It might also be just the name of the call. The email address that it was attempting to email, and the error summary and the date. So the error summary will depend on what actually happened when the email was bounced or undelivered. This one basically says that the email account did not exist. I set that up purposefully to go to an email address that I knew didn't exist, just to show you what it looks like. So you might see an email like that. You might see something that says the inbox of the recipient was full and they couldn't delivered. It could also be for kind of an unspecified reason. If I click see full message here, what's going to show you is this, long coded message of the actual error and, action failed. And you can kind of poke into this to see what might have happened. But overall, this report here, what you can do is just kind of, see if it didn't send to anyone. And what would happen is you might need to try to track down that artist's email. So whether that be calling them through their phone number listed, or, any other way you can try to contact them, you can maybe reach out to us and we can see if we are able to reach out to the artist to get their correct email address. But depending on the error summary, you might just not be able to send a message to them, or there's other ways to kind of go about emailing them separately. But this is a way that you can check that once you send all those emails out, if you don't see any bounces reported, then that's great. And you don't have anything to worry about in that sense. So then our other report here that I'll touch on briefly is the events data report. This report was a quick, it's kind of a quick view report that tells you how many artists, entries, and work samples per media type your call received. It's a pretty simple report. All you have to do is select on the call you want the data for, and it will just display that information. So it will list number of applications, number of images, number of videos, number of audio. This report can be downloaded, but it will show you at a glance these statistics, which may save time if you're curious how many people applied with how many work samples. You can also look at this info for past calls. So one tip I have here is that if you want to figure out how many video or audio samples to accept, you're not sure how many artists typically send videos or audios. So you can go to a past call and see, anything that artists might have submitted. If you do see a high number of videos or something like that, maybe that can help you determine how many videos to collect in your next one. This can kind of help you see, application numbers over time. Click on your different events just to see how many applications at a glance your events are receiving. And that concludes that for the events data report. Like I said, it's pretty simple, but, it could be handy once in a while. We do have a question here in the chat. Is there a way to have the columns of sizes without the words populating? For example, instead of 17 inches, just listing 17. So yeah, the column that lists the media information in the media information spreadsheet, it does list the unit right next to. Unfortunately, there isn't a way to change that. It's kind of a fixed feature of our spreadsheets. It's also because when an artist enters their dimensions, they enter that info. So of the unit. So they put in, X inches, X, feet. And there's not really a way to change that. I could understand how splitting those out into two different columns, one with the number, one with the dimensions or the unit. That would be helpful. So we can definitely make note of that. But for now, it's just combined. And then, Molly, to answer your question, which is there's no way to select the info you want to see and just download one report. Past reports had all the info in one spreadsheet, and that was helpful to have it all in one place. So for these reports, you are just kind of downloading what is given to you. So in the different reports, because it has different information, there's not really a way to customize it, and there's not like an all-in-one. However, I will just give you a tip that the media information spreadsheet, which I will open up for you again, and let me share it here. This spreadsheet here does include the most information. So while it does list, the artist info, the media information, it has the status in here. Once we get to the right, it does include the rest of the artist's contact information. So this does include the most info in one spreadsheet. So I would just recommend the media information. You will just have to combine it with the application answers spreadsheet to get any of the answers to the custom questions. I have a quick question in the chat about checks. So if the checks are sent to the organization, what actually shows on the spreadsheet for checks? Just the fact that they are paid by check. Yes, it will just say how much was quote unquote paid, but that is not actually collected through CaFÉ. It'll say paid by check, and it'll show the check number that the artist, when they check out on CaFÉ, have to enter. So when they check out, they, write that they're paid by check. They enter the check number that they're going to send to you, and they mail it off. But then CaFÉ will show you the check number that they entered and the amount that they selected. So whichever product they are purchasing by check. And that will be evident in the report. So if you wanted to only run it for checks, you can, run a report that will show all of the checks you are expecting to receive, and it'll list those check numbers so you can quickly verify those as you receive them. And I have a question in the chat. Does this report not show an entrant's previously assigned ID number? The only way to match the reports with the others' reports is by name. So this report on CaFÉ that we're viewing only shows this information. But let me show you what the downloaded report looks like. It actually includes some more information, including that artist ID number, which is what you're referring to. So if you download the spreadsheet, you can get that artist ID number to match it with the other spreadsheets. And then we have a question, can you pre-sort this list before downloading? I don't believe so. I think this report here is not sortable yet. Definitely a good point to add to our wish list. In those other reports we talked about on the events management page, typically you can click on a column heading to sort the transaction or sort the table before you download it. And then that downloaded spreadsheet will have that same sorted information. Looks like here we don't have the option to sort our headings here. So the downloaded report will be in the order, I believe it's in the order of the transaction date. So you can see kind of how we have it listed here. It's listed in order of when the artist purchased the entry fees. And we have another question. Is there a way to pull a report with media, contact info, and the jury results together? Let's go to our jury administration page. So this is where you can find a report of the jury results. Jury results might mean, whether an application is invited or not, in which case, since that by the end of your jury process should mean that an artist is either invited or not invited, that's, in the end result. But sometimes the results actually mean the score given by the juror. And so in that case, you'll want to go to the jury administration page and you can run the scoring history report. Let me find an actual call that has scores on here. We've got some scores here in this demo call. So what I'll do is I'll choose the call, I'll go to the finalize tab. And then you'll see here we have save each round scoring history, and I can download the scores. So what I'll do is select the jury round. If you have multiple, you'll want to select which round of jurying you're going to pull the results from. And you can click on download round 1 scores. You can also click view scoring history, and that will show you an actual view on the page of those scores and all the comments and stuff. But then you can download the spreadsheet itself, and I'll go ahead and open it. Let me switch my view here. And you'll see what we have is the information. So it does include all the media information that you talked about before, Amy, about, media info in addition to the jury results. But it does show the app ID number and the artist name, which you can match up with the other reports, the category, and then it'll show the average score, and then the scores given by individual jurors, and then any comments left by it. And these additional were from other jurors that have since been removed, which is why it doesn't show the actual column headings. I haven't really set up this one for this webinar, but this kind of does show you what it looks like, showing all of the scores on the spreadsheet. This will conclude our webinar of how to use reports on CaFÉ. I hope you've learned some helpful tips and maybe discovered a new or more efficient way of accessing information that you didn't know before. Thanks for joining us, and be sure to join our next webinar next month.